We have a question behind.
Okay.
Ayağa kalkıp kendinizi de tanıtırsanız sevinirim.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ali Suleiman. I just have a very quick question regarding the 3 levels of working. So, you said that there's the responsibility and the behavior, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, behavior, and then it was the
Properties.
the possible. Well, it's the product, right? The product, basically. So my question is, where is the place for the policies and regulations by government? Because I think behavior of people needs kind of a regulation and framework for people.
Yeah.
So, like, do you or your organization kind of work with governments in policies? And if you do, what's your methodology or philosophy towards that? So if you can answer, that'd be great. Thank you again. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Very good question, I think. I think this is exactly what the future is all about. So what you see, if you leave ethics to companies, then nothing will happen. So if there's kind of laws on sustainable living, then suddenly companies have to change. So my simple answer is that I think that, so what you see happening in the Western world, so there's kind of neoliberalization. So it is how to give people the freedom to do what they do. But I don't think this is the future for a world, because in that case you miss the ethics within a society. So I think it's very important that governments and companies work together, but that companies steer type of society you're kind of striving for. This is their responsibility. And it's not companies that can do so. So I really believe in this togetherness. So I really believe in companies, but companies kind of acting in relation to what governments want. So, for instance, the simple idea of the old lamps that are used in buildings, and that kind of uses a lot of energy, it can change in 2 years. So we can change from bulbs to LED lighting, if there is laws on that. And that's, I think, very impressive. So in that case, also for the companies, it will kind of ensure them that they have success, because otherwise they will not innovate at all. So I think it's a beautiful question, and I see this new balance kind of arising between governments and companies. And I think this is the most ideal world we're looking for. Yeah. Thanks. Is there any other question?
No. No question.
You have a question?
Just try.
Okay. You have a question for the audience?
A question for the audience. No, I'm kind of. So we started our presentation with a more kind of ideology, and then Marcel talked about how to experience things, and then in the end, Jos talked about how to make that come true, and how in the properties of the object itself, how to improve and how to be as efficient as possible. Of course, I think it's not new, but do you think it can be of importance for you to work with a scheme like that? So that would be my question. So my question would be, so is it something you say, oh God, this is boring stuff because we already do it for 30 years? Or is it something you think of, maybe we think that way, but we still do not do that? So I'm kind of intrigued or interested in what the current situation or status within your field of expertise is. So that's the question to the audience.
Maybe they want to leave it in the networking. Oh,
Somebody's.
pardon.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sinan. I'm an architecture. So I want to combine your question's answer with another question of mine. So our field of expertise, we always designing stuff. when the industrial design, the interior architects, graphic designers, everything, you said for the sustainability. I want to ask, what do you think about human behavior? So, we're talking about sustainability, materials, we always think about nature, we want see more sun, we want to use less water for our future, but the human society's unpredictability and the anarchy of the young generations and the urge of the breaking rules, how they affect your designs. So you do you calculate these things in your design? So because in architecture, in the new architecture, we're using human behavior simulations and some behavioral psychology stuff, but always it comes to that end. You design one product, it became in some level of usage, but it never came to your imagine of the usage. So how do you count these things, planning this human psychology in your designs?
Yeah. So to be very, to try to answer it as simple as possible, I think it is about knowledge on the understanding of what kind of effect is the result of a specific quality a user is confronted with. So this is the knowledge we have. So we understand how people react on certain qualities. And this we use to understand in specific situations, to understand what kind of concerns are addressed of people. And by understanding the types of concerns, we also understand what type of stimuli we have to develop to make that happen. So it's a kind of, it is psychology in a way. And it's all based on emotion theory, for instance, or on behavioral theory. Yeah, that's true.
And maybe I can add something. On a very practical level, as an industrial designer, we're used to calculating a lot and make a reference to other products. So usually everything that we design, we can compare with something else. In production technology, material used, energy used, because it's all repeated. I think that's very different from architecture, where you usually build a thing and there's nothing to compare it with. You don't repeat that often as we do. So because we're used to repetition, we're also used to measuring the qualities of our designs.
Yeah, that's a good, I really like that answer. So of course what we do, we use a lot of prototypes also to prove if our starting points were right. And of course it is in this making these prototypes that you can kind of make believe if the theory was right. There's one example, for instance, of a very rich lady living in the Netherlands in the 20s of the last century, and she had so much money that she asked a person, so in the field of architecture, to make a one-on-one scale model on wheels, so that she even could kind of drive it through the environment to see where the best position of this building would be. So this is a kind of same experiment, but this is only for the ultimately rich, and we're not talking about the ultimately rich because that's not interesting, I think.
It also has to do with the role that we play as designers in this society. I had an interesting discussion with architects last week, and the architects were complaining that they can only control a very small part of the process. The kind of projects that we usually work on, we have to control the whole process, from start till it's on the shelf in the shop. Which means that we're used to these mechanisms to control what's going on in the whole process. In architecture, somehow the structure of project organization is different. You have small blocks, one follows the other. And the last one can't influence what the first one is doing, and the other way around. We usually have that possibility to influence the whole process, which means that we can also choose where we make the benefit in a new design, where we create sustainability. So you give a little bit here, you take a little bit there, because you can control the whole process. If in architecture it would be more possible to control that whole stretch, that whole process, I think you would be able to gain more benefits from it, from that total approach.
I'd like to ask maybe another point. In the past, an architect made a building for the user. So the user who wanted the building, he got an assignment from a company who wanted to use the building. So he knew the user, in fact, you could say. That's why we do user research. Before you start making a product, you try to understand what the user wants. Today, with the real estate situation, at least in the Netherlands, you have real estate owners and you have people who hire spaces in a building. So the real estate owner doesn't know anything about the coming user. And the new user cannot give any input to the real estate owner about what he wants. So there is a mismatch, you could say, between use and product, between the user and architecture. And that's where the system collapses, I think.
Thank you. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz sevgili konuklarımıza ve konuşmacılarımıza. Şimdi sizi ikramımıza davet etmeden önce de bazı hatırlatmalar yapmak istiyorum. Biliyorsunuz Ekim ayı konuşmasında Doğan Bey'in de söylediği gibi yoğun etkinliklerimizle başladı. İngiliz 6 Ekim'de önümüzdeki hafta ünlü Fransız mimar Dominique Perrault burada olacak. 11 Ekim'de İngiliz yapı mühendisi Tim McFarlane, 27 Ekim'de ise Barcelona'nın yüzünü ciddi olarak değiştiren bol ödüllü bir mimar Benedetta Tagliabue burada olacak. Kasım'da da hepinizin çok yakından bildiğine inandığım ünlü akademisyen mimar Farşit Müsavi yine YEM'de olacak. Dolayısıyla yemetkinlik.com sayfasını takip ederseniz her zaman burada buluşmaya devam ederiz. Tekrar çok teşekkürler. Thank you to be our guests here. İyi akşamlar herkese.